Hello, this is the Advanced C++ class. This presentation is the power of passing references or pointers, also the Typedef, functions as parameters, and other miscellaneous ideas or ideas to reinforce your current programming. I consider the following code. Notice I have an array of size n, and I call it A, and I'm using a Microsoft Zero Memory API in Windows.h. You can get it, and I pass it the address of A and the size of A, and then I use this for loop, which is in C++ 2011, to pull out each member of A one at a time and then display it. And over here you see it's all 0. Next, instead of just zeroing it out, I want to change A's contents directly. One of the advantages of this, if the array is really large, this could be a very fast method, custom to access memory and clear it out. Now, back here. Here we have A, and I'm going to fill it with numbers, not 0. I'm going to fill it with the counting integers 1 through 12. Why? Because it's more exciting than 0. I'm going to print it out using the same printing technique. Next, I want to add this function, foo. And look at it carefully. It has a variable I call A, and it's a variable that will reference an integer array. How big is the array? I don't know. But I have another parameter I call I, and I is going to be used as an offset into the reference for A. So in other words, this will get me whatever the array is, it'll move over to item I. Now, instead of giving me the value that's there, this is not going to give me a value. If you look over here, it says integer reference. So it's not going to tell me A of I is 6. It's going to tell me where A of I lives. I'm actually going to get a reference to this memory location. What does that mean to us? It means, here's my function foo. Give it A, give it an I, and it's not, this is legal. It's going to return an address just like A of I is here. I can use this instead. Notice how confusing this is to look at. Just use it wisely. Now, what if I wanted to talk about a prototype? That is, this foo, function foo, has a prototype, and this is it. It's the function foo, its name. It returns a reference to an integer, or whatever, and it has two parameters. Don't care what they are. The second one's an integer. The first one is a reference to an array. So what if I wanted to point to it? What I do is I take the prototype, I put a star here, and that means this letter F, this variable F, is pointing to a function that takes an integer array reference and an integer and returns a reference. F is a pointer to any function that matches this prototype. That's a lot to type in. C++ and C language has this keyword called Typedef. So if I type this long mess in, the word boo will mean this entire thing, and now it allows me to easily figure out the syntax to write. Here's an array F. It has two items in it, and both items are of type boo. And what is boo? It's this function address, or anything that matches that function prototype. So I get an array of functions. What's it good for? Well, let's use it as just a crazy example. Here I have the function, here I have boo, here I have F. F is just an array, two items. Item 0 equals the address of foo. Item 1 equals the address of foo. It didn't have to be foo, it could be something else. So what does this mean? Well, for example, F F0 is an alias for foo, so this is the same as foo. F1 is the same as foo. They're aliases. Take a look here. I just inserted this code, and now I say f of 0, parenthesis, a, comp. Oh my goodness, look at this mess. It means the exact same thing as these two lines of code. Does the exact same thing. Excuse me. So let's take a more concrete example. Excuse me. There are lots of practical examples, generic algorithms of what. I want to write this box. I want it to work with all types of data. Give me any data, I can work with it. But I don't know what your data looks like. So what I could do is ask you to give me functions. So I could do things inside my code and take your function and slip that function in there, and it'll help me make decisions so that I can operate on the data. Let's do an example. I want to put these integers in order. There's an array. I have to compile it, initialize it to these values, and I ask the compiler, you know how big B is, all these bytes, divided by the size of integers, and it'll tell me how many integers are there. Here I encapsulate my bubble sort. Why I picked the bubble sort? Because it's so easy to type up. And notice I do a comparison here. A of j, is it less than a of j plus 1? The two elements next to each other. J, and then move over 1. If they're out of order, that is if j plus 1 is larger, swap them. And this is hard-coded. While I'm at it, since I have an array, I think I'll display the array. I'll use the same technique. Now my main code to test it. I display B. There's B displayed. I then bubble sort it. Then I ask B, hey, display, please display B again. And now it's in order. Great. But what if I wanted to reverse this order? I want 0, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. I really can't. I have to rewrite bubbles because it's hard-coded. Are there ways around this? Of course there are. Here's a very popular technique. Add a third parameter. This third parameter is my comparison parameter. Down here, instead of saying is a of j less than a of j plus 1, let this function comp decide for me. And notice it has a prototype, integer, integer, because I'm working with integers, and return true or false, because I'm using it in an if statement. If we go back to this green box, no one really knows what's in this green box. Somebody has to tell me the rules about writing foo so I can work with my data and my algorithm. So here I talk about the idea you need rules. They're supposed to be clear, not clean. Clear. Typo. They have to be clear or clean on how the comparison evaluates. So I wrote some stuff here. So now I write two comparison operators, comp1, comp2. I can call it foo and boo if I wanted to. And it says, all right, here's the prototype. Bool is what's returned, except two integers. I call the first one A, second one B, and I set up my rule. I could write any code I want in here, depending on how complex A and B are in the decision process. Here's comparison number 2. Again, notice it matches. I don't care about the name. I just care about matching the prototype. And then I write my own rules. Same code with the new bubbles. And I give it comp1. I added another number here. And you see it nicely displaying it from high to low. I use comp2, and now it's going from low to high. And notice my code didn't really change here. I just added this function. So it's very, very powerful concept. The end.